Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am Dave Chameides, your host, and something a little different today. I recently spoke at Mount St. Mary's University in Los Angeles, California, to a group of film students there, and afterwards had the pleasure of doing a Q&A with a great operator, Paul Sanchez, who's done amazing work. Here it is for you. I apologize, I kind of screwed up the beginning, so we kind of had to cut into Paul's first answer, which was basically a description of what the job of the camera operator is on set and what it entails. So thank you very much for listening, and here we go.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll. Rolling!
Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Margaret. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
This website that he has too is I would say the number one great website, not only for operating, but muses, the whole thing. Like it just puts to shame anything you're going to find on YouTube. Okay, he definitely has the experience. He has he's searched out so many different points of view. Anything you can get from that, from the very beginner to the very experienced. Okay. And that's one thing he's done too, is that he's asked everyone. And on set, we ask each other, how did you do that? Right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
We learn from each other because we're trial and error, right? We're being asked to do things like the West Wing shot that he hadn't really done before. We never do anything exactly the same way. That's one thing that we're always doing is, yes, we've been on sets, we've been doing these things, and a lot of it is meeting certain amount of expectations. But there's always different actors, different time of day, all these different, they're not obstacles, but I would say different challenges in which we have to constantly assess. And it's the assessing is the skill of trying to figure out what the problem is. One, you identify what the problem is and how to fix it as quickly as possible, which is the definition of a director on set, okay? They see a problem, the scene's not working, or the line's not working, or something's not working, and a director, the most effective director, is the one who can figure out what to do within the time we have. And I've heard great directors say, this is as good as we get within the time and resources we have, okay? Which means no matter what resources we have, it's never quite enough, There's only so much time, there's only so much. And also too, particularly in television, I think, is that a network is taking everything is a big risk, right? It's a trip to Vegas every time we make something. So they're trying to limit their risk as much as possible. So our confidence is we have to deliver something, right? We have to deliver something that's hopefully great, inspirational, and it's going to go somewhere, right? But then we still don't know that it's going to be successful. That's up to everyone else looking at it. So it's that kind of thing where we have to have confidence in the vision that we hope it's going to be, and then we have confidence when we're on set that we're going to figure out what the problem is that we're going to do and be loyal to this idea. So we can, in a sense, the best situation is to elevate this art form, right? More than half of my jobs are delivery jobs, meaning to say I'm being hired based on what I've done, not what I want to do. But when we're on certain sets, we're like, wait a minute, they're asking us what we want to do, right? And that's awesome. Like I said, no matter whatever money you want to pay me, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like this is the best thing, and that's when you can see if you have enough people on set who go, wow, okay, yeah, let's try to make this work, as opposed to why are we doing this? So don't be that person on set. Okay, why are we doing it this way? Which is really does happen that way. It does happen from everyone in the crew because it's frustrating. They can't quite figure out why we're doing it. It's not, why are we doing this? It's great. It's more like a frustration. They can't get it. So being open-minded and saying, I think it could work. And experience really helps too, is to bring people with experience, because I think they will give you the confidence to say, this probably could work. Like you had enough experience to do the West Wing shot because you had done difficult shots before.
Yeah.
And so you had enough experience to do it, which was great. Lucky for you, right?
100%.
you know, because you didn't really know that, right? And so it tested you, but you also had the willingness and maybe it's just your temperament and frame of mind to say, I think we could try to do this, as opposed to feel like you're set up for failure.
Well, I think it's also, there's part of, I mean, how many times have you been handed a shot where you literally turn away and you're like, I don't know how to pull this off. But what you do is you go, okay, and this is why I'm being hired, so I'm going to start to break it down into pieces and figure it out. And that's when you don't go off in a corner by yourself.
Right.
You go, all right, I need the key grip, I need the dolly grip, I need the DP, I need let's all figure this out. And a lot of times, I mean, for me anyway, there's still but how do we do this part? And sometimes you go, I don't know, let's just move forward and we'll figure that out. Have you had those moments before?
Oh, all the time. I mean, there's times when I literally don't know how I'm going to do this shot. That doesn't mean it's impossible to do. It's just I can't quite figure out what it all is supposed to mean or what it's supposed to do or where the tricky parts are, that kind of thing. But I can tell. Like, that's one thing about when I was younger, I couldn't tell this was going to be a difficult shot.
That's right.
And
You're
then I
stupid.
landed like, oh, I do not have the skills to pull this off.
Yeah.
Now I recognize, I go, this is going to be really hard. And sometimes I will go to what we call video village, right? And I will reset their expectations, meaning, hey, get comfortable, everyone. This is going to be a few,
Yeah.
right? And that could be for focus pulling. That could be all the light cues. Sometimes we have dimming cues and all kinds of things because they're shadow. I mean, there's a huge thing that's going on, right? And as you said, it looks easy, but we've had to orchestrate all these things. So sometimes we have to, reset everyone's expectations. And sometimes when like a very difficult focus pull, and no one is like, what's going on? Why do we need to do another take as a focus? And they're just like, oh, and they're like, yes. They don't know what you do until you don't do it very well, okay?
Yeah.
And that's, a focus puller is invisible and it's a very difficult job to do. So, and the person who just does it day after day after day, and you just like, where are they? I don't even know what's his name, what are their, and that's the person who's like, man, they're killing it.
And on that level, we're all our own worst enemies because we tend to make it look easy, even though it's not. And that's part of our job, is to not make people sweat and not make the actors look at what you're doing and disappear, right?
Yeah.
And so then everybody expects everything to be easy. And then when something is actually tough,
Right.
they're like, why is this tough? And it's like, well, because I mean, there's lava.
Right.
That was never here before, and that's hard, right? Like, you understand that part of it, right? So so I think it's a weird dynamic there. But I didn't show. I won't go into the full thing, but I showed up. Our good friend Jeff Greeley called me out to Chicago to do what was supposed to be an absolutely simple, mindless series of shots, one a day, and it was time lapse. And I showed up, and it was literally like a Ronin walk around onto a descender rig. I mean, it was this massive shot. And the DP, I can't think of his name right now, who's a friend of mine, he came over to me about halfway through setting it up going, you keep on saying this is going to take a while. And I'm like, yeah, because I want everybody to realize that this is going to take a while.
Right, yes.
So, yeah, I think there is that constant, like, just, I don't want to get caught with my pants down here because I want you all to realize what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to your point, we don't really know what we're doing exactly, and we're just making these decisions, and everybody starts to making these decisions. And one thing about rolling as opposed to rehearsing is I do see everybody, including the actors, really making those decisions because this could count, right? Yeah. And so I agree with you with the film and to digital, that we could do 20 takes easily. That when we do roll, I do notice that the problems we think are going to be problems aren't problems, because there's somebody else also making decisions too, even just at that very moment.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about it necessarily. They just make they adapt and they adapt and they adapt. And so what you think is going to be a problem is not. So sometimes we talk it to death.
That's true.
And thinking about it's all, and it's just like, why don't we just roll?
Why don't we just do it?
And then it's sorted all out.
Yep.
So that can be a very good way of sort of sorting it all out. So it depends on your temperament. Yeah, Mary?
I was just curious, you talk about the different jobs. Have each of you done those jobs? Like, have you been a focus puller?
No,
Worked up, or?
Yeah, have we done other jobs before? I'll say this. I think every day you're on set is helpful, and when you're on set in a different department, it's helpful because you get a different viewpoint of things, right? I started out as a PA on miniature visual effects on the movie Tremors and Terminator 2, which is about as far away as you can possibly get from where I am now. I pulled focus for 6 months or something like that before I decided to become a Steadicam operator, and then I got a Steadicam, and I was quote unquote a Steadicam operator, which meant that I could screw up music videos for many years. And then somehow I became a conventional operator. So I've done a couple of minor other things, but really that's been most of my career.
I started professionally as a camera in a camera rental house as a technician.
Great.
And a small place in San Francisco. And then I met camera assistants, and I got a picture. I started a picture that came to there. It came to San Francisco called "So I Married an Axe Murderer," and that I started as a loader on that, and that was a real great break for me. But I didn't know the job as loader, from camera technician to a loader, which is loading the film and that, keeping track of all kinds of things. That was really a difficult learning curve for me at that first picture, but it was a huge help. And then I became a second assistant for a few years, and then I was probably for about 7 years I was a focus puller, and I learned a great deal about that. And I learned a lot about storytelling. I think that was really my first. I didn't go to film school, so that was really how I learned about blocking and about certain choices and that kind of thing. And then I always saw, we had a little monitor on our cameras, even though we were shooting film. I could see what the operator was doing and certain choices that were being made. And then the conversations from the director, and the relationship between the actor and the director and the camera operator and the director of photography and all that. So that was a really good front row seat, let's just say. And then I had my own job, of course, to do it. And I was running the camera department, certain things. But then I've always wanted to become a cinematographer, so that's what I did. And now I split the sort of roles of both shooting and operating. I really do like that. That meets my temperament. I sometimes really like just having this particular job, a specialty, and it's really a wonderful job because I'm not running a department. I don't worry about budgets. I don't have that many emails.
You go home and you turn your phone on.
Yes, I have the script, I have the actor and the director, and that's really all I have to worry about, and how it's going to cut. Okay, and that's something that there's so much, of course, to talk about. But as an operator, I really do think about how is this going to cut, and sometimes if I don't know, that's when I'll ask the director, how are you going to use this, or how is this going to cut with this, that kind of thing. So I can make, maybe there needs to be a slight adjustment, that kind of thing. And so, to your point, it's this both a storytelling and the movie that I have in my head, right? That's how I start the whole rehearsal. It's just like how the movie, this is what I would want to watch, you know? And I often tell everyone, let's give them something to change, right? So, because the director and the actors, they're all getting ready and doing things. And so a lot of times it's our opportunity to work with everybody else to try to, and the stand-ins to make something. And it never, they always will change it, and that's good. But you do a lot of work. But it's not, it's based because you had your antenna up, right? You know what the tone is now because you've read the room, right? You don't move something, or you do move something. If you move it because, well, of course you would move it, or a director's like, you don't move anything. You don't talk to the actors. You read the room. So you wouldn't do those things. You can't be the guy, this is what I do, if you don't like it, tough. It's like we are constantly adapting to our crews, the strengths and weaknesses, let's say the actors' vulnerabilities or those things. Particularly, we have these day player actors that come in, they don't know anybody. And I always feel it, and I want to say hello to them, make them feel comfortable, that kind of, they are terrified. They have to be, no matter how experienced they are. They don't know anyone. So we're sort of playing the, even though the AD and everyone else should do that, and they do, we have a real different kind of close relationship with them, other than the other actors, of course, do.
But Paul also said something that I think is really valuable to talk about, which is reading the room, which as an operator is, I don't know, 60% of your
Yeah.
job maybe. As a director though, as anyone on set, it's honestly about knowing when to say something, knowing when not to say something, knowing who to say it to and how to say it to them. It can make or break your career. And truthfully, if I had to tell someone how to be a good filmmaker, what they should study in school, I'd go with psychology.
Yeah, be cool.
Yeah, be cool.
I mean, this is really a huge part of it.
I mean, it's very succinct and very sort of whatever you want to call it, but it is sort of true. And the last thing when everything is going crazy that a DP or director wants is an operator who's going crazy as well.
Yeah.
They want someone who's going, all right, everybody, let me give you a hug. We're going to be fine. Okay, we're going to do this. And you may be losing your mind going, I'm going to get fired any minute, but we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And there are actors who, by the way, you develop relationships with who literally need you as an operator to play off of, to be there for, and so you learn what they need and what they don't need, and it's constant and it never stops. And actually, it's one of the more interesting parts of the show. And generally speaking, I mean, if I show up on a new show, like it's the first day, and I don't know too many people, maybe I don't know the director so well, or I know the DP or whatever, I'll probably be much more quiet than I will be on week 4 because I don't know who wants me to talk and who wants to hear and who wants whatever. And then what I'll usually do is I'll, like with the director, like I said, I work very well with the director, I'll lob some really super softball stupid stuff out there just to see what the response is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go like, hey, I know you have them on a train, but do you think they should be on a boat? Because that would be better, because that's not going to work out. But hey, what are your shots? Oh, they're this, this, and this. Okay. Is there something outside the window that's of value? Is that no. Okay. Then, and I say nothing else, because then I know, okay, at least they know that I'm not going to keep pushing that, and maybe they don't want me. And then maybe I'll throw something else down the road. It's like, hey, is there any value? Like quietly, so nobody else hears. And then, oh, there is actually. Let's try and get that. Okay, yeah, I'll make a note of that. And you slowly become an ally of theirs.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, it's clear manipulation. I'm not going to lie to you. It's because I want my job to be easier and I want to be part of the crew and whatever, but it's positive manipulation or something like that. There's probably some
but I think
Freudian name for
you've
it.
sort of distinguished, as far as I can see, it's like the difference between anyone who's on the crew is being very good at what they do to being incredibly good at what they do, right? And that's really like, you did these remarkable technical situations. I mean, these problems. You've worked it out. You did things that I don't even know how you did it. I mean, I was looking and going, God. And
neither do I.
Yeah, and it's really remarkable. But to do it and have everyone's confidence and everyone is all pulling together, and you do it with grace and cool, that's what makes you great. So everybody, that's the human part of it all. So
Yeah.
I can't say that enough. It's like I just recently worked with a crew that was just, they were not only so good at what they did, but the producers, I told them, I said, you did a remarkable job of pulling together.
That's the best.
Such great people, because we all worked well together. We all respected each other. No one thought they had all the answers. Everyone read the room, and there was clearly enough experience all there. But I give a lot of credit to producers for doing that, because for a long time, I just often thought they just called me because someone suggested and I was available, right? And I would do it for the rate. And now I realize there's a lot of consideration that producers go through, not just
sometimes.
No, that's true.
Not always.
That's true. Not fair enough.
But in the good
ones,
cases,
let's just say,
yeah.
do consider everyone that's
and
on
who's
the
going to
crew.
work with who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they do really consider it.
Yeah.
And are you particularly good with a very difficult director?
Yeah.
You might be. That's why you got the job. You're right. You might be good because this is going to be really demanding, for different reasons. So we all have skills, right? Just remember this. We all have skills. Are they the skills they need? Okay.
Yeah.
So you might not get the job just simply because you're great at what you do, but you can't be everything to everyone.
You're just not a good fit for that job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I have my doubts and I have this and that. Well, that might just show to them that I don't have enough confidence, let's just say, right? But to someone else, I can relate to this person. He doesn't think he knows everything, that kind of thing. So then I can work with that person. So we assess each other in that kind of way.
You get nervous when you start a job?
Every job. Every job.
Can you repeat that about starting a job and how when you get the first job you feel like you're...
Yeah, no, it's, look, I mean, one of the things that's weird is you're in film school right now and like you're going, okay, I got this and I know how this works and I know how that works, and you're like on top of the world, and then you're going to go out in the world and you're going to go, I don't know anything. And it's not because you don't, it's because you're jumping up to the next level, right? And then you're going to go, okay, I'm confident as this and I'm confident as that, and then you're going to go up to the next level and you go, I don't know anything again. Like, how did this happen? And there are times when, look, I've been operating long enough that I can go on a set, I know how to operate, like but maybe I go on to a set where there are specific rules and I'm like no tilt or something like that, and I'm like, oh, I've never done this before, so I have to retrain myself to do that now. Or by the way, just, working with a very tough actor that I've never worked with, who's hard to work with. It does happen. And you're like, okay, so now, thank God I know how to pan and tilt well, because I have to put 85% of my emotion into this. So, I think one of the biggest things that I learned early on is that everybody fails, and everybody fails constantly. And there are micro fails that nobody sees that happen every single day, and there are macro fails that, you think my career's over, and it generally isn't. And I think when you realize that it happens to everybody, it gives you a different mindset when it happens. And it's not about the fact that you've crashed and burned, because that's going to happen. It's the fact that you're going to get up and go, this made me better, and I'm going to figure out how it's going to make me better, and that is never going to happen again. And more so, I've learned X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to be better here. So I think that's what differentiates people who truly fail and it's the end of their careers and who succeed, is that they learn from the failures. And when I should mention, by the way, you asked me what I did, I kind of forgot that I directed for a while as well. I directed ER and Third Watch and Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, and then I suddenly was like, I don't like directing, because a lot of people tell me what I'm doing, and I don't like that. And as a Steadicam operator, people don't tell me what I'm doing. So I went back to operating, and I'm very happy with it. But what I was going to say was, Chris Chulak, who's an amazing director, when I was first directing, said, I'll tell you this, is you're going to learn more from watching people fail than from watching people succeed. Because 90% of the time, you don't realize that people are succeeding until a long way down the road, but you can on any set go, that dude's failing right now, and I'm never going to do that. It's like you can, you just chalk up those things. Well, I'm never saying that to the director. Whatever.
Right. I learn how things work when it's not working. I mean, it's either technically or whatever it is, it's just not working. You find out how it works when the thing doesn't work.
Yep, and then when you are failing, hopefully you have people around you that rely on. When I was directing ER, there was a scene that something changed and I completely got thrown. And Charles Pappard, who's a good friend of mine, was operating for me, and he came up next to me and he goes, why don't I just go put some dolly track over there while you figure this out? And I was like, yeah, that's great. And he's like, guys, let's get some dolly track over here. And he was like, like, a circus guy on the side. And I'm sitting in the corner going, what?
Awesome.
And then finally I was like, oh, okay, now I know how we can do it. And I looked over and he was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, good. And he's like, is the dolly track okay? I'm like, yeah, we'll make that work. It'll be fine. But it is like everybody has, and also, by the way, and it's worth mentioning, we work really crazy, stupid long hours. And even just in that, everybody has ebb and flow. And there are times when my dolly grip will recognize, because now my assistant is usually farther away, my dolly grip's right there. But he'll recognize that, like, I'm down, and he's like, hey, let me get you a cup of coffee. This next one's a phone-in one, just, put on the wheels and sit there and I'll push you into the shot. But like, and then there are times where they'll be, and
many times.
Pick each other up, right?
Yeah, it is. That's one thing that it's not, it's 6 o'clock in the morning and suddenly we have to be really creative. I mean, it's
barely
miserable.
Got to set.
Like, and then like you said, 2 o'clock in the morning, it's freezing, and it's like, I'll give the money back. Just let me go home.
No, exactly. And also, Also, you're just like, they're like, hey, can you also boom up and zoom in and whatever? And you're like, I hate everybody right now. And I can't say.
Yeah, so it's not like it's super fun all the time, you know. It's called a job for a reason, that's for sure. But
Yeah,
yes.
no, there's, you know, and I will say, look, I know everybody in this room thinks that they're going to go out and be a writer, director, you know, on some massive movie. But the reality is most people are going to go out and be on low-level jobs. And I don't mean low-level that it's not important, because it is, but at entry levels. And I'll tell you something, at 2 a.m. when a camera PA walks over and puts a cup of coffee in my hand made the way that I like it, because they know, I will like, I'll drive that person home at the end of the night. I mean, like, I will tell that person anything they want to know, like, because, but that's
right.
but that's important, like that, because that's what I need to keep on going, and that's someone who's going, oh, I'm watching the machine and I can help here, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all important. So, do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
You guys have talked around it a bit tonight, but for all the budding directors in the room, you both have worked with a lot of different people. I'm curious if there are things, whether it's temperament or approach or traits that you find in certain directors that make it more possible for you to do your job well, the way they approach coming to set and pre-production and so on, for everybody in the room that's looking to do that eventually.
Yeah, temperament and approach and the way that directors work with us that make our job easier.
It's a great question, because, and I mean, what would be the best? I mean, you know, I remember I had a camera operator say to me, a friend of mine, and I said, I really want my crew to feel like they're a part of something, you know, they're part of it. He goes, feel? You don't want them to feel. You need them to be a part of it. You know? And I was like, you're right.
That's great.
It's not about feeling it. It's really that you need them to be. And so
they're invested.
Yeah, they're invested. And it's the idea that you have to come and have to have all the answers, you know, as a director, and that otherwise you'll look like you're incompetent, is definitely a fallacy. It's not. It's more that you have a strong sense of what this needs to be. You're the, you know, and what the tone is and that kind of thing. But as we do with each other, the director is very helpful when they explain to us what they like to do, you know, that this shot is this, and they are available to questions about that kind of thing. And when we're under a certain kind of, we have a problem with this particular shot and we want to change it, it is helpful that they listen to what we have, but they still, in some ways, give us confidence that this will work. Like they're going to say, listen, it's not like I don't have faith in you. It's just like, we'll give it some time. Let's just see what happens, you know? And that's helpful as a director to everyone, is to sort of have faith that we'll figure this out together. And you don't have to have the answer like, well, this is how you need to do it, right? So I don't really know exactly how, but in reading the room, you read the crew as well as a director. You read their abilities, and they need lots of explanation or they don't need explanation, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I you know, I don't know specifically, you know, a particular thing, but I do think that it's really important that they are part of it, that they are filmmakers. If you recognize them as filmmakers and storytellers, you will have a much better chance of getting a great thing, right? Yeah. And I remember a director said to me, I sure hope this is as good as I imagine it to be. And I was like, I sure hope it's better than that. And the only reason I say that is because it's got to have a life of its own. Your ideas are good, but those are just that's where you are right now. At the end of the movie, you should be a better filmmaker and found new things and all those things. And as a collective, it becomes even better than you imagined.
Well, it's clear, the examples. You showed it what I heard many times from you. I mean, even St. Vincent, he wanted that last shot.
Yeah.
And the shot was better
Yep.
than what you suggested, and he didn't imagine.
He was open to it. I mean, the thing that I would say about directors is a good director to me has a vision and understands what they want. And then what they do is they go, I'm surrounded by good people, so here's that vision, here's a story I want to tell. You guys make it better. And what I'll tell all of you is one specific thing is don't think that you need to know all the technology that we know. That's our job. You tell me, one of the best directors I've ever worked with is a woman named Karina Evans, who at like 17 started trolling Drake on Instagram or something like that, and then at 19 got messaged by Director X, who I think is something or other, I don't know, someone big who I don't know, and started literally at 19 directing all of Drake's music videos. And then I met her when she was 25, and she directed her first real thing, which was a pilot for a TV show. And early on, she would go, I want a Steadicam here and whatever. And I said, hey, Karina, I want to ask you a favor, and only if this is okay with you, but if it's not, that's fine. And she said, what? And I said, don't talk equipment with me, because I know that you're a storyteller and I know that you're a visionary, and I don't want you to say Steadicam or handheld or whatever, because suddenly my mind is in that. Tell me what the story is, and tell me what the feeling is, and tell me what the image is, and tell me all that artistic stuff that I know you know like the back of your hand, and forget everything else, and let me fill it in. And you're still going to make the decision. Don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from you, but let me unburden you from that. And she was like, oh God, that's so much easier. And I said, I mean, still have your idea, go, like whatever, if you need to. And we never talked camera after. And then I'd go, well, I could do this way, and it would get this or this way. And then as she got, more confident, she would sort of like, get back into it. But it was so interesting because it was such a wonderful way to talk about it, because it was just storytelling. It wasn't technology. It wasn't any of this. So I think the best directors that I work with have an absolute vision and an idea. Tommy Shalami, who created The West Wing and a bunch of other things, is one of the best directors I've ever worked with. And one of the reasons I love him is he will have a shot absolutely exactly in his mind how he wants it. And we'll get to set and he'll lay it out. And he'll look over at me or look at the craft service person or he'll look at the DP and go, you have a better idea. I go, no, I don't have a better. No, you have something. Tell me what it is. I mean, I don't want to, what is it? And I'll tell him and be like, that's not a better idea. And I'll go, well, it is a better idea, but you don't have to do my better idea. Or he'll just as happily go, God, that's so much better. Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing that he realizes, I realized after a long time, is he's been sitting with this script for a year, 2 years, 6 months, whatever it is. And he's been seeing it over and over in his mind. And he's been seeing the same thing. And then he's getting on set and he's trying to translate that into what his vision is. And he's trying as best he can not to be held by that. But you can't help by that. That's a human thing. But he realizes that the value that I have and the value that the DP has and the value that the craft service guy has is that we are seeing it for the first time completely open. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing the actors for the first time, which he was never able to see. He was just imagining. And so we actually have a leg up on him in a weird way. So he's open enough and confident enough to trust that saying, I had this great idea and I know we got a 45-foot techno crane, but Dave has a really good way to do it on a sandbag, so we're doing it on a sandbag because that's a better way to tell the story. He's going to do that. And that takes a lot of confidence, and also it takes being the executive producer, because you don't get someone screaming at you because you bought a 45-foot techno crane. But I think that's is to have a very clear vision and then be willing to walk away from that vision when you sincerely see something better or someone else see. There's no ego in this. And the thing that I'll point out to you, the directors in the room and even the DPs in the room, is when that screens and everybody gets up and cheers, they're not going to go, that camera operator was really great. That key grip was fantastic. They're going to go, that director did something amazing there. And that is my job. My job is to do something unbelievable that you then take the credit for. And then I hear you being interviewed in Time magazine and I'm like, he did not even say my name. But that's all right. That's okay. I'm not bitter about that. But so I think those, what's that? Editors, no, but it's all of us. Our job is to deliver their vision, and that's the same with actors, by the way. Actors have their take on it, but they have to understand what the vision is, and everybody's tailoring constantly. And so one of the things I'm always doing when I'm creating shots and changing and finessing as we go is making sure I haven't changed what their vision is, but I've augmented it, I've helped it in some way that doesn't hurt them. So that's what I would say, the best. And also, by the way, I mean, this is really simple, but it's worth saying, be nice. I know you have a tremendous amount on your plate, because I've been there, and it's really high stress. And there are directors who have chewed me out before. But the ones that I want to work with and still respect will come over to me 20 minutes later and go, that was totally wrong and I'm sorry. That was not your fault. Or even, that was your fault and it really pissed me off, but I shouldn't have said that because I've got a lot going on. Because people are human beings. I mean, ideally it never happens, but this is a pressure cooker situation. And if I come up at the wrong time with an idea and you turn around and go, I don't have time for this, it's just like, I'll understand, like, okay. But then later on go, you know what, I know you're just trying to help. I'm really sorry. Like the producers,
And I just want to add one thing more to your point is, it's really just great to just have a reason why we're moving. Like if it's not wide enough and they're like, no, I need it back there. Why? And you just move the camera back there. I don't know why. And so that's difficult for me. So then I'm just doing what I'm told to do. Yeah. And so it'd be great. It's like, no, I need it wider because I want to see this. Oh, great. Now I understand.
Missing the grandeur.
So that,
of blah, blah, blah.
And then you start to learn more about what they like and what the vision is that's in their head. So just give them a reason, whatever reason you think, or I don't know, I just want to see something. I just want to try it. That's a reason,
But I think what that comes down to simply is treat the people who are working with you like storytellers, not technicians. But be smart enough to recognize that some of the people you're going to work with are only technicians and not storytellers. So you got to read the room.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't ask something of someone that they don't have the ability to bring to the table.
Yeah.
So, and part of that, by the way, is like, and we do this, like, I don't know, but I'm sure you do this. IMDb, I get a job, I'm looking at everybody and what they're doing and sort of trying to cross-reference and figure out who's who and what they've done. So I have somewhat of an idea of where they're, if I get called for a Wes Anderson job, there's two things. One, I know what I'm going to be somewhat of a technician on that, and that's okay because that's to a level that's different. And then I'm going to call Sanjay Sami, who works with him all the time, and say, Sanjay, what do I need to know? So you're finding out things from people because we all talk.
Yeah, I get calls like that too.
We all talk.
Yep.
By the way, you probably just get calls for work. Am I guessing? Do you look for work? Or?
Do we look for work? Right now, yeah.
That's
all we do, right?
Yeah.
You've been cool, so you probably get calls most of the time.
Sometimes, I don't know about you, sometimes I get calls, sometimes there's lulls. I mean, lately there's been lulls, but...
There's lulls, but I think there's nothing wrong with looking for work, that's for sure. But I guess maybe it's my temperament. I just sort of wait for the phone to ring, but I do at times. The people I like to work with, I let them know I'm here to help.
Yeah.
I'm around if you need any help.
Right.
I mean, and I have to really emphasize that we're all here to help.
Yeah.
So if instead of calling them and saying I'm looking for a job, okay, that means you need their help. Okay, and it's really like you want to offer your services to help. So if you don't feel comfortable about trying to reach out there, just let them know you're available if you need any help. That's pretty vague in a way, but it gets them to understand that you want to help and that you are available.
And it can be as simple as like if you have a list of people or whatever, you go through and you go, hey, I just finished X, Y, and Z. Yeah. It was really great. If you hear of anything or you need a day off, I'll do that a lot. I'm around and happy to help. I don't think there's anything wrong. And really what it is you're just keeping in people's minds, because what people do is they go off on tracks and they go with another group and then they kind of forget about you and then they go, oh yeah, I remember Dave, and then you get a call for it. I mean, I've done that before.
Yeah. But or we do and plan a vacation or
buy a plane ticket. Yeah,
Yes.
buy a really expensive plane
Definitely
ticket. Yeah, you'll get some sort of job. And then if not, you're in Bora Bora going, I can't afford this, but it's kind of nice.
Right.
So there's no question about that. Or if you have a kid, just have them have a birthday party or a graduation or something. Something like that'll happen. Final questions?
Nope.
Questions? This is your chance.
Yep.
Did you say that, like reading the room and environment is like 60% of a camera operator's job?
Yep. I mean, I'm guessing there, but it's a lot of it.
And you said it was not only a camera operator's job, but it was like everyone on the crew's job. Is that what you said, or was it only a camera?
So crews are like families, right? And it's just like being at a family dinner and you realize like someone's in a bad mood, so I'm going to give them some space, and someone's really talkative, so I may talk to them, but I may pull back a little. So you're constantly sort of figuring out how people work and who needs what from you and whatnot. So I think it's everybody's job to do that. As a camera operator, I think maybe you're a little more in the center of things. So maybe you have to interact with even more people. So you might have a larger group that you have to read the room of. But
Okay, and well then he's got a 60%. Though. What was the other 40% again?
oh, well, first of all, I don't know specifically, but I mean, look, I think what I was trying to say is like, we pan and tilt, obviously. And I don't know about the percentage, but that's really sort of a very important part of our job, but it's sort of a small part of our job. And the interpersonal relationships and dealing with people is almost a bigger part of our job, and knowing what people need and how to speak to people and when to speak to people. It's a lot of it. And I think yes, yeah, exactly. And I think maybe the reason that came up was because, sometimes if people have different ideas, it can seem like almost a hurdle. And it's like, as long as everybody realizes that we're all there just to help, it's okay to go, no, that doesn't work, but thank you, and whatever. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
What happens when you do something amazing on set, but then you go to post and then they cut it out?
When we shoot something amazing on set.
But that never happens.
When we shoot something amazing on set and they cut it out
Cut
in
it out
post.
of the movie,
No,
yeah.
it's never happened to me.
With your husband, and then he walks out of the room going, oh my God.
Yeah, no, I can't tell you how many. Well, the thing that drives me nuts. I mean, this happens as a Steadicam operator, but I know
Yeah,
this happens
sure.
to you as a conventional operator. Is like they'll have some massive shot, some really long shot that they're going to cut into a close up in the middle, and you don't have to do the whole thing. You're like, couldn't we just? No, we're never going to cut in. And then they do the whole thing, and they go, listen, before we go, we're just going to grab a close up right in there because I think we need. And you're like, I knew this, and I could have done that better. But what do you? I don't know. What do you do? I cry, and then.
Yeah, I mean,
It hurts.
It's disappointing.
It's-
Yes, you.
Paul's wife is pointing out what she
I
has
would
to go
say there's different sort of formats. If that's really frustrating to you, just try to stick to working on feature films, because then pretty much everything you do, unless they just cut the whole scene, which often happens as well. And that's after you've reshot it 3 times. Then they decide that it's just not working and they get rid of it all. But I mean, it was at Mad Men. That's what the money's for.
Yeah, I mean, our job is there to do it. But I will say this: there's a term called NIM, not in movie.
Yeah.
And the thing that drives me the most crazy the most is when you've just worked a 12-hour day and you're doing one final scene that's 3 people in a room and it's going to take 2.5 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody knows that the show is long. It's a TV show usually. Show is long. It's never in the movie. And you're like, we're shooting something that. I mean, even actors will be like, this isn't in the movie, right? And you're like, it isn't. But that's your job,
Yeah, it's hard to know.
yeah.
I mean, we do think, there's stuff in the script where I'm wondering, what this seems like a second ending, and it's like, yeah, it is a second ending because the studio wants this ending.
Yeah.
So we do both endings, kind of thing. Not that it's just like an additional act, like, yes, I guess both could be in there, but it seems redundant,
Yeah.
So we know there's certain things that for other reasons why, that's there. But yeah, it's disappointing definitely when we really do something, or they choose a take that's not the one you wanted them to take, right?
never
It
happens.
technically was perfect,
Yeah.
and that you really killed it, but there was something in the performance that's what they're cutting to. So I mean, that's just the way it is. But network television is probably the most disappointing for me.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say this, because we can do, sometimes I've worked on shows that are 14 hours of media a day we've been shooting. 14 hours. We do 9-day episode for 1 hour. So I have no idea how they're cutting this. And it's from slate to cut. I mean, everything's got to be just perfect, and they just cut.
That's incredible.
There's like, what is that? 1 to 100? Like
Yeah.
that is. I have no idea how they're going to cut it. So as a filmmaker, if you do, they say, like it used to on television, if you do too much television, that's all you're going to do, because you don't think about a film. You're not thinking as a filmmaker anymore, because I can't possibly know how they're going to cut. How's this going to cut when? Oh, you have 3 more cameras that have shot all this stuff. So it's just. That's a difficult thing for me, and that's probably the most disappointing. And then features are probably the most satisfying, because you're just like, wow, this is.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing some big Marvel thing, it's a little confusing sometimes. But
Yeah.
But if you're doing a straight drama, it's definitely
Yeah, and one thing we haven't talked about, like, he's shown some amazing shots, right? But most of our work is is really, coverage and get, what you all learning,
Yeah. Over, single.
Yeah, that's
It's a
so
lot of
much of it. And eye lines and, what's in the background and all these things.
Yeah.
We're working the same blackboard, I call them blackboard, formulas over and over again. And they're all and there's different flavors of that kind of thing. But so now it really comes very second nature to me about the line, the stage line, and all those kinds of things. It's very easy for me, but it wasn't, and it can be complicated when you have 8 actors and they're all looking at who and that kind of thing.
And that's where you rely on other people. By the way, we've talked about my shots because I was showing them before, but you should definitely go to the breakdown on my website. Paul broke down a oneer that's really 3 shots, but it's seamless, from The Old Man. That's a fight sequence on a techno crane, and it's not something you normally see done, and it's done exceptionally well. So it's worth checking out. I will say though, as far as the shot being cut out, if I'm watching it and some shot that was crazy to get is cut out, but I watch it and I go, oh, you know what? That's so much better the way they did it, that I'm happy, because there's some things we don't see until they get into editing.
We don't
So
know.
if they made it better, I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's just when I realized that we did some crazy thing that took forever and it really is missing, that's what bothers me. But at the end of the day, it's not our job,
So one
One more question.
Well, that was a nice segue into The Old Man, which is one of my favorite series.
Oh, good. Nice.
There's a conversation online, I think it's with you and Hilton Corey.
Oh.
On camera for
Uh-huh.
the website. And you talk about The Old Man being a series where there's an economy basically of
Operating, yes, definitely.
And I think at one point you said you developed a phrase, I don't know if it was your phrase, but where sometimes Jeff Bridges would just walk out with a phrase.
Oh, yeah.
And you said you had to resist the urge to
Go with him.
Mm-hmm. And you developed a phrase called The Old Man
Pan. Yes, that's right. Yes.
And my question is, with a series like that, which is sort of kind of slow burners,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an economy movement, did you have to adapt to that, to the urge to want to?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you mentioned something. I can't remember. Ozark, maybe, or learning something. Yes.
Yeah, getting used to zero
and still,
till.
we've done this for years now, right? I mean, and you think, I think I've seen most of it, and then you see something, you go, oh, this is why don't move the camera. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that. So what you're referring to is the Old Man pan, where Jeff maybe, or one that would leave frame and go over here. Instead of going with them, I wanted to keep this tempo, because there was this tone that we wanted to keep, which is the camera barely moving, or in the same respect, we'd either track, we wouldn't necessarily pan all the time. But I did this thing where I was slow, I just decided to just go slowly and find what he's doing. And
as opposed to following him step for step.
And so what I realized it meant that, so when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I think this could work, because it was the right tone of speed, because we're always thinking about having some music in our head, right? Is how this is going to work. But it meant what I didn't know about the story in this moment was he's always ahead of us. And I was like, this supports the character, because it's so about the character. So he's always ahead of us, even when he's what appears to be slowing down, all those things, but he's always ahead of us. And that was great. And another thing is that when I didn't move the camera, I mean, really just, even if the actor was moving and they moved a little bit, and you had this urge to, keep them in the same part of the frame. If you don't move the frame at all, the background doesn't change at all, which means the viewer already recognizes what the background is, right? Doesn't have to reassess. Is always looking for new information, right? It's always trying to find something new to what is this about and what's going to happen next. And if you don't, so what you do is you look for whatever's moving. And if the camera's not moving and the actor's not moving, there's something moving, and it's probably their eyes. So you're just looking at their eyes, and that's where all that acting, and they don't have to say anything, right? They're acting and they're telling you something, and you're not looking anywhere else. Now, sometimes you want, handheld is very effective at that, because you're not sure, are we going right, or are we going left? It's like, what am I showing, and what's going to happen? I'm confused. And that is a very good device to sort of, and heightened this, I'm not sure what anything could happen at this moment, right? But if you want something you really clear and understanding, then don't move the camera if you can avoid that. And that's an urge that all of us had to try to make sure that, something's not right. And just like, so sometimes the frame wasn't correct, really meaning correct, appropriate for this. I needed to be a little bit wider to let the actor play in that frame. Or I needed to be, something slightly different. If it was too wide, then it just lacked tension and lacked things. So it was one of the hardest things I ever did.
I can totally see.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Good. It was really hard to find the right thing, and that took more work than anything else. Yeah.
Well, the thing that I think is interesting in what you're talking about is there's a reason for everything that you're doing. And I think that when there's a reason for everything that you're doing and it fits the storytelling, that's why it's good. I mean, and the other part of it is I love the old man pan. That's just great. I'm using that. But the idea that you're panning and he leaves frame and then you probably hear something off frame and then you catch up with him, that engages the viewer. And anytime you can engage the viewer and not spoon feed them everything, you're captivating that viewer. I mean, one of the things that I've been watching recently, if you watch The Bear, it does that brilliantly. They don't cut all the time, and they'll just hold a 2-shot forever. And let it play. And you have to do this. One of the things on the breakdown, Don Devine talks about, an amazing operator, talks about this shot from Panic, which is a 50 millimeter 2-shot at a bar that doesn't move and it doesn't cut. And his whole discussion is, why do you have to cut? You have 2 great actors. And as the viewer, you can be the editor. You get to decide who to look at. Yeah. And you watch it, and it plays out in real time, and it's amazing. And it's the same thing like you were saying. It's sometimes, everybody has to buy into it, obviously, director and editor and whatever, but it engages the viewer more if you don't go and look over here and look over here and look over here, because they have to actually be involved in that. And I think as directors and as storytellers, it's so much harder but so much more rewarding to do that.
Yeah. Well, great.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.